Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. The top headlines tonight. The Army, Air Force and Navy chiefs will meet the Prime Minister tomorrow. The service chiefs will brief the Prime Minister on the Agnipath recruitment scheme. The Prime Minister in Karnataka today says some decisions might look unfair, but they will eventually help in nation building. The Congress delegation in Delhi meets the President, says the Agnipath scheme must be discussed in Parliament. The Army announces its recruitment notification for Agniveers. Agniveer registrations will open in July and the Agniveer will be a separate rank in the Army. This has top corporates from the Tatas to Anand Mahindra, etc. all tweet offering jobs to Agniveers. Over 600 trains cancelled, traffic jams around Delhi borders, but no vandalism of trains and buses today. Rail passengers complain of ruined summer plans as they are stuck in the middle. The opposition's third choice also rules out being opposition presidential candidate. Former Governor Gopal Gandhi rejects the offer by the opposition after Sharad Pawar and Farooq Abdullah. Now he's the third candidate to say no. Also, Mamata Banerjee will skip a Pawar-led opposition meeting tomorrow. Is there a rift in the opposition over this? Rahul Gandhi is questioned for the fourth day today by the Enforcement Directorate. The questioning is still going on. Sonia Gandhi is discharged from hospital and advised rest at home. The Maharashtra Chief Minister monitors votes. The BJP brings MLAs in wheelchairs. The Maha battle between the Chief Minister Sharad Pawar and the Congress versus the BJP over one MLC seat. Lakhs displaced in Assam floods and a heavy rain alert as rain is 104% above normal at this time. NDTV reports from the worst hit areas. The murder of singer Moose Wala. The case is solved, say police. 6 shooters and assault rifles armory with them. The police say the shooters had planned to use grenades too. Now a record heatwave across Europe, above 40 degrees in France and Spain. And this stunning Himachal cable car rescue mid-air. Heroic efforts mean all 11 passengers were rescued from these cable cars which were stuck mid-air. Our lead story tonight, well, the service chiefs will meet the Prime Minister tomorrow. This as on day 6 of protest. There was a Bharat Bandh called by different organizations, including farmers' organizations. In various states, schools were closed, traffic was hit. In the national capital, Delhi, the borders were badly affected. And the big focus, of course, is trains. Luckily, there was no violence, no vandalism today, but over 600 trains cancelled. So for passengers, it's really a nightmare. And remember, this is the peak of the summer holidays. It's been a nightmare as travel plans are cancelled. But the big headline today coming, Vishnu, also was, of course, the fact that corporate after corporate coming out actually offering today employment to Agniveers in what seemed a coordinated effort.
No, that's right. In fact, it is quite interesting because not just the corporates, and we'll bring out all of those tweets in a moment, but the army's announced what the recruiting process is actually going to look like. So selection for regular service is going to be only after 4 years as Agniveers. So that's something which is absolutely clear as well. Regular service will be for a period of 15 years. The army will consider applications by Agniveers in a centralized manner. Only Agniveers can apply for regular service after 4 years. They will not have the status of ex-servicemen. All Agniveers will be discharged on completion of 4 years of service. The 25% shortlisted will be invited to return within 2 weeks. They can apply for a full tenure while still in service. Now, Agniveers would form a distinct rank. They will not be called ex-servicemen. Now, as a result of this, corporate India has certainly come out and has endorsed the scheme. It's almost as if all the big companies have come out and supported it. Anand Mahindra of The Mahindra Group has welcomed it. So many others. The Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce has welcomed it. Sajjan Jindal has said that it's created a disciplined talent pool, or it will create a disciplined talent pool. There are others as well, and let's just keep scrolling through that, who've actually come out and said that the youth will serve the nation's defense forces. It would result in a great deal of benefit to the country in terms of people hiring. So Sajjan Jindal, one of them, the Tatas have come out as well and have said that this is something that's going to work out.
Right, so of course, as you're saying, Vishnu, so a coordinated effort from the Tatas to Anand Mahindra all coming out today, but also news coming in that service chiefs will be meeting the Prime Minister tomorrow. What is the likely impact of that and the fact that the service chiefs are likely to brief him?
Well, I think they would brief him on what the overall situation is as far as the scheme starting out is concerned. And it's going to be starting out in just a couple of days from now. The government is pushing through with this, and the hope, of course, is that the violence will end. But it's a done deal as far as the armed forces are concerned. It is important that they get the right people. Arsonists, as they mentioned, not acceptable in the armed forces.
Right, and we saw the army there announcing its formal recruitment notification on a day that all top corporates came out saying that they will offer employment to Agniveers. And the Prime Minister in Karnataka today also said, though not referring to the Agnipath scheme directly, saying that some decisions might look unfair, but they will eventually help in nation building.
कई फैसले, कई रिफॉर्म तात्कालिक रूप से अप्रिय लग सकते हैं, लेकिन समय के साथ उन रिफॉर्म का लाभ आज देश अनुभव करता है। रिफॉर्म का रास्ता ही हमें नए लक्ष्यों, नए संकल्पों की तरफ ले जाता है।
But of course, the major impact remains on the people, because today a Bharat Bandh was called by various organizations, including farmers' organizations. There was, however, no violence, there's no vandalism or rioting today, perhaps after the army's strong words on how no arsonists would be a part of the recruitment process. But the fact is that at least 600 trains have been cancelled. This has led to huge delays and inconvenience to passengers and also major traffic jams today.
Hundreds of passengers stranded at railway stations across Bihar, as over 300 trains were either suspended or delayed in the state, a fallout of the protests against the Agnipath scheme. In Delhi, there were massive traffic jams on routes like the Delhi-Gurgaon expressway, where police was checking vehicles entering Delhi for any protesters.
रेलवे कुछ बता रहा था वो कहाँ से, एक बोला कि हमारे को कुछ पता नहीं है, मैं बोला कि मेरे को लिख कर थोड़ा दीजिए, ये भी बोला कि मैं लिख कर कुछ नहीं दूंगा, तो ट्रेन कैंसिल है।
वैगना के एडमिशन के लिए कोटा जाना था, 22 तक लास्ट डेट है इसका एडमिशन का। कल तक बता रहा था कि ट्रेन कैंसिल नहीं है, आज पता चला कि ट्रेन कैंसिल है, जिस कारण से आज लौटने का भी कोई ट्रेन नहीं है।
The internet was shut down in as many as 20 districts of Bihar, and the state government deployed paramilitary forces at 11 party offices of BJP, which are considered vulnerable. On 16th June, protesters had attacked MLAs and party offices of the BJP. This has caused a massive rift in the ruling BJP-JDU alliance, with the BJP accusing Chief Minister Nitish Kumar's government of going soft on protesters. With the centre making it clear it will not roll back the Agnipath scheme, many young men in Bihar say they are deeply disappointed.
इसको क्या कह सकते हैं, तानाशाही की सरकार कह सकते हैं, मजबूरन इसको इम्प्लीमेंट किया जा रहा है।
सर हमें ये नहीं समझ आ रहा है कि सर 3 साल हम लोग यहाँ मेहनत करके सेना में भर्ती हो रहे हैं, मात्र 4 साल ड्यूटी करने के लिए।
Students also came out on streets in many districts of Haryana to protest against the Agnipath scheme. In Jhajjar, some students were detained and later released. Farm union leaders also extended their support to this agitation and allowed vehicles to pass without paying the toll plaza for 3 hours. Long queues of slowly moving vehicles were also witnessed at Delhi-Noida Flyway, Meerut Expressway, Anand Vihar, Sarai Kale Khan and Pragati Maidan.
The protest against the Agnipath scheme reminds us of the initial days when the farm laws were passed by the Government of India, and when the agitation started, the Government of India had absolutely denied that the farm laws will ever be rolled back. But then after a year-long protest by the farmer groups, the government had to take a U-turn and roll back the farm laws. And with the protests continuing against the Agnipath recruitment policy in different parts of the country, what remains to be seen is that whether this will culminate into similar kind of agitation across the country. With camera person Sushil Rathi, Manish Kumar in Patna and Mohammad Ghazali in Chandigarh, I'm Akshay Dongre for NDTV.
Akshay, thanks very much for that. But let's have a quick update on what's happening in the presidential polls. Well, former West Bengal governor and Mahatma Gandhi's grandson, Gopal Krishna Gandhi, today said he would not be opposition candidate. It's the third opposition choice who has rejected the offer made by Mamata Banerjee after Sharad Pawar and Farooq Abdullah. Mamata Banerjee will also skip a Pawar-led meeting on this tomorrow. Sanket has the latest updates.
So hectic parleys are now going to take place as far as the race to Raisina is concerned, and there are largely two camps here. One is of course the government led by the BJP, and the other is the opposition, and you can see the various movements taking place in the opposition camp. Let's first talk about the government, that is the Bharatiya Janata Party. So we know that JP Nadda, he held a meeting with a 14-member management team on Sunday. Now BJP announced the President Polls crack team. They have a crack team of 14 people. This is going to be led by Union Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, Union Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal, G. Kishan Reddy, Ashwini Vaishnav, all were part of the team, and they had a meeting at Mr. Shekhawat's residence on Sunday. BJP General Secretary Vinod Tawade, C.T. Ravi, all of them attended. Now if you also recall, Rajnath Singh and JP Nadda have been authorized by the party to speak to NDA and UPA allies on likely names, and this is interesting because sources tell us that Nadda and Singh have reached out to many non-UPA, non-NDA partners. They have about 49% of the electoral college. To have your own candidate inside the Rashtrapati Bhavan, you need to cross 50%. They hope that the like-minded parties will support them and they will very easily cross the 50% mark. They have also, as a part of this exercise of reaching out to UPA as well as NDA constituents, reached out to Mamata Banerjee, Sharad Pawar, Mallikarjun Kharge, Akhilesh Yadav, Mayawati and Shibu Soren. What happened in those talks we do not know, but an attempt has been made so that there is a consensus candidate. But let's now find out what is happening in the opposition camp, because that's where a lot of movement is taking place. Now there is a big opposition meeting which is expected tomorrow on the 21st of June. Mamata Banerjee is unlikely to attend this meeting and Abhishek Banerjee is going to attend in her place. Last meeting, if you recall, was held on the 15th of June in New Delhi. The TRS had not supported the opposition meet back then. It's interesting what their position is going to be now. MIM is going to send a representative. 3 candidates so far have backed out from the race so far, and this is a big blow to the opposition. Sharad Pawar, Farooq Abdullah and now Gopal Krishna Gandhi have all said no. The opposition is yet to finalize their presidential as well as vice presidential candidate, and the candidates for the government or the BJP also remain a mystery. Lots of movement, the names not quite out yet.
Also, well, lots of movement with the Enforcement Directorate and Rahul Gandhi, who is questioned for the 4th day today. He'd taken a break on Friday and Saturday, Sunday because his mother was in hospital. Arvind has the latest details. Let's go across to him now live. Arvind, so Rahul Gandhi is still being questioned as we speak by the Enforcement Directorate.
Yeah, Sonia, it's almost close to 40 hours of grilling by the Enforcement Directorate of former Congress President Rahul Gandhi in connection with the National Herald case. This is the 4th day that the agency is questioning Rahul Gandhi in this particular case, and what we are being told is that today the agency mostly dwelled upon whether Rahul Gandhi was part of any of the board meeting, let it be the Associated Journal Limited or let it be the Young Indian Limited, when certain important decisions were taken, whether he was part of any of these board meetings, whether he cleared any of these important decisions of Young Indian Limited buying the shares of Associated Journal Limited, or whether Rahul Gandhi was aware when this particular 800 crore worth assets of Associated Journal Limited were transferred to Young Indian Limited. So these are the questions that the Enforcement Directorate is asking Rahul Gandhi as we speak, and what we are being told is that like the earlier 3 days, even today Rahul Gandhi's statement is also being videotaped, and what we are understanding from our sources is that it's unlikely that the questioning will end today. In all probability that the agency might need one more day of questioning of Rahul Gandhi, that we have to wait and watch whether he'll be called tomorrow or sometime later in this week.
Also that today Congress President Sonia Gandhi was discharged from hospital. She's been advised to rest at home. So will the ED actually be looking at questioning her next given her ill health, or is that likely to be delayed further, or is it not going to happen anytime soon?
Yeah, Sonia Gandhi has just been discharged from the hospital, Gangaram Hospital, after the treatment, a week-long treatment of COVID-related illness, and she has been advised to take rest at home. Though the Enforcement Directorate has summoned her to appear on June 23rd, that is on Thursday, it's very unlikely that Sonia Gandhi will be appearing before the agency. And what we are being told by our sources in the Congress party is that her legal team will be writing to the Enforcement Directorate seeking a deferment of the summons that have been scheduled for 23rd, that is for Thursday, to sometime later. And Enforcement Directorate, after considering the request, might give a fresh date, but it all depends when her legal team will be writing to the Enforcement Directorate.
Arvind, thanks so much for those details. And meanwhile, Congress MPs and two chief ministers today marched to Rashtrapati Bhavan. They also, a delegation met the president. They've said that this Agnipath scheme, the recruitment scheme, must be discussed in Parliament. They said it didn't go to a committee, any parliamentary committee, or come to the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha at all.
देखो, अग्निपथ ये तो 46,000 युवकों को वो क्या तैयार करके आरएसएस में लाना चाहते हैं, मुझे तो मालूम नहीं। कभी आपने सुना है क्या किसी देश में ऐसा हुआ है कि 4 साल ट्रेनिंग देना और छोड़ देना? यहाँ पर तो परमानेंट वैकेंसीज हैं। हमारे डिफेंस में कम से कम लाखों वैकेंसीज हैं। पहले वो भर्ती करो, और वो अगर वहां पर भर्ती करेंगे रेगुलर बेसिस पे, उनको ट्रेनिंग देंगे, वो तो रेडी है। तो आप सिर्फ 4 साल का ट्रेनिंग देके, स्टाइपेंड देके, इलेक्शन तक इनको एंगेज करने के लिए आप ये काम कर रहे हैं।
Let's move to other news from Maharashtra. Well, counting has begun for the MLC elections in Maharashtra's assembly, and of course after that big jolt for the ruling alliance, the Rajya Sabha elections, no one's taking any chances. The Chief Minister was there today personally monitoring votes of Shiv Sena MLAs, and Devendra Fadnavis, who was there as well, he's been credited with the Rajya Sabha victory, made sure that every BJP MLA could vote, including those in wheelchairs. The Supreme Court today rejected the claims of 2 Maharashtra ministers of voting, was there currently in jail.
Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray himself at the Vidhan Bhavan meeting Sena MLAs in groups before they could vote, and after that a Sena MLC or leader accompanied them to the voting hall to ensure no one could accost them midway. Shiv Sena leader Aditya Thackeray led all the Sena MLAs into the Vidhan Bhavan as voting got underway to ensure no MLAs cross-voted. As voting progressed, ailing MLAs of the BJP, Lakshman Jagtap and Mukta Tilak, came in to vote using wheelchairs. Lakshman Jagtap drove into Mumbai from Pune on an ambulance, a 3-hour drive, just to cast his vote. The 10th seat in these MLC elections is seeing a close contest between the Congress's Bhai Jagtap, the Mumbai Congress president, and Prasad Lad, the BJP candidate. Bhai Jagtap was seen greeting Hitendra Thakur, an MLA from a smaller party, and receiving him at the Vidhan Bhavan as he came in to cast his vote. MLAs of smaller parties and independents are crucial in these elections. As voting ended, the Congress party raised an objection saying that the BJP MLAs who were ailing and yet came in to vote violated voting rules by taking the help of a third person to cast their vote. According to Rule 40A of the Conduct of Election Rules, only the visually impaired, those who cannot read or write, or those with specific disabilities can take help of a third person while casting their vote.
ये तीनों भी बातें इन दोनों सदस्यों के इसमें नहीं थी, तो इसलिए गलत तरीके से किसी और को वोटिंग करने को दिया है, और इसलिए ये वोट काउंट ना हो, ऐसा कांग्रेस पार्टी का ऑब्जेक्शन है.
Amidst criticism that the BJP MLAs were violating rules, the BJP said they had taken permission for assistance for 2 ailing MLAs. Devendra Fadnavis told reporters that in spite of him requesting Lakshman Jagtap not to come and vote, the MLA turned up, showing his commitment to the BJP.
मला असं कळलं त्यांना ताप आहे, मी त्यांना फोन करून सांगितलं की तुम्ही येऊ नका, तुम्ही आम्हाला जास्त महत्त्वाचे आहे. पण 10:30ला त्यांनी परत फोन केला चंद्रकांत दादांना आणि सांगितलं नाही मी येणार आहे, आणि त्यांनी घरच्यांना सांगितलं की काही झालं तरी मी मतदानाला जाणार, आणि जिद्द करून ते या ठिकाणी आले. मला असं वाटतं की ही जी कमिटमेंट आहे फार महत्त्वाची आहे, फार मोठी कमिटमेंट आहे. त्यांच्या या जिद्दीला खरंच आम्ही सलाम करतो.
An NDTV Bureau Report.
So suspense continues till that final vote is counted. Meanwhile, the latest from Assam, where heavy floods caused by unprecedented rain, 104% above normal, has impacted over 47 lakh people in 32 districts. 11 people have also died in the last 24 hours. The worst hit areas are in Nagaon district, where 2 policemen also died in rescue operations. Over 105 villages have been inundated here. Ratnadeep reports from the worst hit areas.
Even as the Assam flood situation remains grim, we are at ground zero in Kanpur, one of the worst hit areas. Now Kanpur is in Nagaon district, and Kanpur has seen massive high floods this time because the Kopali river, which flows besides Kanpur, is flowing above highest flood levels. And you can see here everything is inundated, the houses are inundated. Most of the people from the villages around Kanpur have been evacuated and taken to safer places. These people were the last people, and now they have taken this dangerous ride on a country boat to reach a safer place.
Ratnadeep reporting there. But meanwhile, latest news on the murder of singer Moose Wala. All the shooters have been identified by the Delhi police. They say they've solved the murder. They're all from the Lawrence Bishnoi gang. And they also showed today the amount of assault weaponry. These 6 shooters, all of whom were in that bolero which had driven into the village from where they had shot Sidhu Moose Wala, who was in a separate car. And so you can see the rifles, the entire armory there. They've also put out pictures of the 6 shooters. The Delhi police have arrested 2 of them. And the police said that grenades were also with these shooters, which were going to be used in case there was resistance.
19 तारीख को सुबह के टाइम हमारी जो स्पेशल सेल की टीम्स थी, इन्होंने इनको अरेस्ट किया है। ये है खारी मिट्टी रोड, विलेज बारोई, मुंद्रा पोर्ट के पास। तो इन्होंने वहाँ पे एक रेंटेड मकान किसी लोकल प्रॉपर्टी डीलर के थ्रू ले रखा था, क्योंकि जब इन्हें देखा कि ऑलरेडी कुछ फोटोज आपको याद होंगी कि सर्कुलेट हुई थी, जो कि एक इंटरनल हमारा नोट था, उसमें हमने एक शुरू में कुछ वर्किंग करी थी जिसमें हमने कुछ सस्पेक्ट्स को अंकित किया था किसी ग्राउंड पे। लेकिन ऑब्वियसली सस्पेक्ट्स में से दैट वाज द स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट। तो 3 उसमें से जो हमारा वो था कि 3 शूटर जो थे वो वही निकले, रूपा, मन्नू और प्रियव्रत फौजी।
A quick look at some other news. Well, India had 12,781 new COVID cases in the last 24 hours. The daily positivity rate is now over 4% after 130 days. What's worrying is that India's death count has also climbed to an overall of 5.24 lakhs now. The highest number of daily deaths are now coming from Kerala at 11. Delhi is behind at 3, even though Delhi is not the top 2 in cases, followed by Karnataka, West Bengal, Maharashtra and Punjab, all with 1 each. A quick look at the markets. Ended higher amid volatile trading today, with the Sensex gaining 237 points, closing at 51,597. The Nifty gained 56 points. FMCG shares claimed the most in trade today. Experts say global inflation concerns persist, and global concerns on a future Fed rate hike are also hitting the markets. Well, just a few weeks ago, we were reporting on India's record heat wave, and now it's the turn of West Europe, where the records of centuries have been shattered on Sunday as the June heat wave here hit its peak, with France and Spain recording over 40 degrees Celsius.
Temperatures in parts of Western Europe shattered all-time records on Sunday as the June heat wave hit its peak, with France and Spain recording over 40 degrees Celsius over the weekend. It is important to note that Europe typically sees these weather conditions only as late as July or August, and this heat wave is early and unusually intense, and in line with the World Meteorological Organization's warning that heat waves will begin earlier in the year, with higher frequency and severity thanks to human-caused climate change. For Spain, it was the earliest heat wave in over 40 years, whereas in France, it was the earliest in all time. Records were broken in Biarritz, France, with temperatures touching 42.9 degrees Celsius on Saturday, while Pissos in South France recorded the daily national high of 43.4 degrees Celsius. Cottbus in Germany recorded a record 39.2 degrees Celsius. Wildfires have broken out in Germany and Spain due to soaring temperatures and high winds. And in France, some cities banned outdoor public events and even cancelled schools. With Naintara Singh, Sakshi Bajaj for NDTV.
The other big headline from France is Emmanuel Macron losing his majority in French Parliament. And what's worrying observers is the rise of the far right in France.
National Rally's Marine Le Pen dealt a stunning blow to President Macron Monday in the French legislative elections as the far right surged in the second round, with her party securing 89 seats. Macron has lost his parliamentary majority after winning only 245 seats, short of the 289 needed for absolute majority. He has also been squeezed from the other side of the political spectrum by a new left-wing coalition called the Noops, which has secured 131 seats. Now the far-right party has gone from 8 seats in 2017 to 89 seats now. This will allow National Rally much more weightage in parliament, also meaning that though Macron still has a hold on the executive, passing bills will now become very difficult for his party. But why is the far-right doing so well in France? Well, Macron has been facing protests against his pension reforms and rising costs, and the government's mismanagement of the pandemic hasn't helped. Le Pen has tapped into Macron's shortcomings and has led National Rally from a fringe party to a part of the mainstream opposition. Naintara Singh for NDTV.
A verdict watch across Europe and the world. But let's end tonight with this absolutely heroic rescue when 11 people trapped in these Himachal cable cars were all rescued mid-air. It took 3 hours, but each passenger there is safe, all with the heroic efforts of rescue personnel.